Hey, LMHT fam, this is Briana. For those of you that don't know me, I am the founding member and owner of LMH Custom Teas and Herbs, LLC, a holistic health and wellness healing organization. And this is my co-host tonight, Erica. If you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. Yeah. My name is Erica Shoup. I am the founder of Ad Mayora LLC, which is Latin for towards greater things. And I've had that business for about 2.5 years and have just in the last 9 months launched a second business called Kula, which is an online community for neurodivergent individuals.
We met through our coaching program. We went to the same coaching school, and I got to hear about the Kula community as it was starting to become what it is now, which is so exciting. If you are interested, definitely check out findyourkula.com. I am a contributing coach there. If you decide to join the community, you'll find both of us. And also, Erica and I have done some practice coaching on each other back and forth, so I can definitely vouch for her coaching skills. She's amazing. And speaking of coaching and businesses, that is exactly what we're here to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
What you got for us, Erica?
I think it's interesting because my personal story is that I've worked several different jobs in which I have had the opportunity to coach business owners. And it has been everything from really small mom and pop kind of business owners to franchise owners or even larger gyms or chain businesses, small chains. And through all of my experience, I had to really, over the course of 15 years, learn enough to be able to support business owners in all of these different sizes and areas. Like some were urban, some are suburban. And so my background was broad, like a little bit of marketing, little bit of operations, little bit of learning and development. I had to just every time something came up that they needed support on, I had to figure it out. I had to tap into networks and resources and learn things. So I collected tons of information along the way and have supported business owners through many phases of their own journey, some who had been around for decades and some who were just getting started. And so when I lost my job in 2021, I was just going to start a business and do my own thing and continue to coach business owners. I thought I got this licked because I've been doing this for 15 years. I know exactly what I need to do to start this business. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that it doesn't matter how much knowledge or skill you have, because the reasons that my business got off to, I had so many false starts, had nothing to do with business strategy. I knew exactly what I needed to do. Mm-hmm. I just didn't do it. And I learned only recently, within the last year, that it's rooted in a lot of emotional stuff for me, a lot of fear or perfectionism or imposter syndrome. But a lot of those things also trace to this missing piece of, hey, girl, you're neurodivergent. And so learning that about myself and going on this journey and figuring out none of this means that I can't do it. It just means that I need to stop subscribing to all of these narratives and ideas that everyone's pushing around the world of business ownership. And so in the last year, I've just been really intentionally leaning into this with curiosity and creativity and trying to rethink how I set this up so that it works with my strengths and I can navigate the things that are still really challenging for me mm-hmm. with a whole new skill set, a whole new set of tools. So all that being said, I'm actually curious to hear from you, Brie, because you've been doing the business owner thing a little longer than me, actually a lot longer than me. I feel I've been in this trenches for 3 years on my own, but what were some of your biggest challenges or obstacles as you were building or growing your business?
I haven't been in it too much longer than you because I've officially launched the business, launched the LLC, and got everything from the government perspective in order in 2019. But I've done businesses off and on, small scale, for 30 years. I date myself a little bit there. So my experience has been interesting, and I have a similar endpoint to my story as you, because I've been aware that I'm neurodivergent since I was very young. So I at least knew my ADD diagnosis when I was, I think, 8 or 9. And then slowly, as I was a teenager, got some other ones, got my OCD and some anxiety, had my first panic attack when I was 17. And luckily, the server that was training me had severe anxiety and knew what was happening and put me in the freezer, which was brilliant because it
cold, yeah,
my nervous system, to slow down. So that doesn't work. I'm gonna start splashing water on your face.
Yeah.
Which actually activates the vagus nerve and causes you to calm down whether you want to or not. Super cool trick. I kept going from there. I was aware of my neurodivergence, but I never really made the association between business and my neurodivergence and how it worked. Because when I got into professional world, I was a chef. You're all over the place as a chef anyways. And all the stations I worked, because I am neurodivergent, I had one where I did the dessert station, which was in another room. I did the fryer. I did all the frozen foods. I did the steamed foods. I did salads, and I did pizzas. Perfect. I'm always moving. I'm never bored. But when I started this business, it was very different. It was much more slow paced than what I was used to. So I would frequently get bored, which is okay because that gave my creativity a chance to jump in and grab the driver's seat, so to speak. But I was working with my ex-husband at the time. It was very difficult because I was more living a dream and building it around what he was doing as opposed to what I wanted to do. And then when I started doing what I wanted to do, it shifted for me a lot. And that's when I realized that my passion, when I'm doing something I'm passionate about, the dynamic is completely different, very different. So it went from supporting what my ex was doing, which is where the teas came in. I'd already done them for myself. You're not selling produce yet, so let me start processing all these herbs that we have, and I'll start selling tea, and then we'll start marketing for the produce when that starts coming out, and then we're making future plans around that. And as I started doing that work, it was just following my passions. I can see it now. I couldn't see it at the time. So I felt I'm not professional enough, or this doesn't look as good as I want it to, or I had this perfectionistic model from working with different corporate organizations and different businesses that have been around for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Of course, I'm not functioning like them. I'm a baby business. I really just started following the breadcrumbs, so to speak. And once I started doing that and trusting my instinct, trusting my intuition, started aligning what I was doing with my personal values and my lifestyle and who I was, some of that was pushed by clients and friends. Hey, I appreciate all this health and wellness stuff that you're doing to figure out what tea I want, but I also know that you're an intuitive and I know that you do spiritual work and that you do card reading. So how about you use that awesome intuition and you just go ahead and divine for my higher self what I need? I was like, huh? What?
I can make money doing that. That's a business.
No, like only people that are con artists do that. No, you are not. So we need more not out there. And that's how my divination started getting in the mix and just kept growing and growing. But as I started following the things that I really wanted to do, the structure started forming around it. I really love doing spiritual coaching, whatever it is that person's path is. I love doing the Reiki and the spiritual healing because it's hands off. I can literally do sessions with somebody in Texas. I have a client now that I do monthly for that. Connect with their higher self, see everything that needs to happen, and do energy work. And I personally work through God and archangels. That's just how I do my work. And everything is always on point, and the healings constantly show the positive impacts. And then the holistic health and wellness coaching, that's my favorite. And that's my newest thing that I'm getting into, but I see how it all comes full circle and all the other things flow into it. But as I'm doing it, I'm studying what other people are doing, and I'm studying people that are more like me and what they're doing that's working, the ones that are breaking out of the mold. Because I tried so hard to do all the social media marketing and all the emailing and all the things, and it just wasn't working for me. It felt like I was doing so much, but not really doing what I wanted to be doing. So now I'm paring it back. What do you want to be doing? How do you want to do it? And I'm going a little more old school. I'm out there and doing more in-person networking. I did a radio interview, and it was awesome a few weeks ago for a local radio station. And I'm working on getting some ads in the paper and just going with more what I learned how to do and still getting social media and hiring young folks that know what they're doing with that and can do it faster than me and getting them to help me because it's taking too long to learn. That's been my experience. It's a lot of feeling like I'm spinning wheels, but now looking back, realizing I was just putting into place all the things that needed to be there to learn how my business needs to run.
Right. But there's some similarities that I heard in there that resonate with me too, because I feel like I had a lot of the perfectionism, and my perfectionism is similar to yours. If I can't do this as good as that person, then it's not even worth doing. So I would just shut down and not do anything for days or sometimes weeks because it was paralyzing that I couldn't do it perfectly. And I was so hard on myself because felt like you've been telling people how to do this for 15 years. Why can't you just do it? You know exactly what you need to do. And a lot of that too is rooted in the rejection sensitivity of our neurodivergence. If I put it out there and it's not polished, or there's a mistake in it, or it doesn't look perfect, or it doesn't look exactly the way I thought it would, then people aren't going to like it, and they're not going to like me, and I'm going to be terrible. And it's just, you go down.
Get out of the vortex, get
out. Yeah, like you catch the spiral and then you just ride it all the way down. And that's what's so hard about the stuff in the beginning, because the other part of rejection sensitivity is that even though I had this network of people who I'd worked with, who I'd helped and supported through their stuff, I never felt like I could reach out to anyone, but not because of anything they ever did or said, just because if they say no, then that's rejection. And just the fear of someone saying no was enough for me to never ask for help, because I was also still shaming myself, thinking you should just be able to do this yourself. You don't even need help. You shouldn't need help. And the number one thing that I've learned in the last year and a half, 2 years, is that's absolutely not true. I think community support and having a network is the number one thing that you need as a neurodivergent entrepreneur for so many reasons.
Absolutely.
It's so important because of what you just said. There's stuff that I don't like to do. And part of our neurodivergence means that if I am understimulated or just plain disinterested in this task, it will sit on that to-do list forever and ever.
All of eternity.
Yeah. And so having a network of people where you can maybe trade services or just delegate, outsource some of your work to, or even just ask questions so that you can learn enough to get the thing done and get it off your list is so critical. We need each other in this. We need community. We need help. We need to support each other. It took me a while to come around on that, but that's been a huge thing. But one of the other things that I heard you say, that there's so many things to do and I don't know what to do first, or I feel like I've done 25 things today, but there's still 50 things on my to-do list. And either my inability to prioritize the right things because I'm chasing the things that are shiny, the fun stuff, the most interesting stuff, but not necessarily the most important. And so learning how to discern what actually needs my energy versus what doesn't, or what can wait, was also just a skill that I had to develop, because I wasn't doing a good job prioritizing the most important things. I was just doing a good job prioritizing the things that I found most interesting.
Yeah.
And we are interest driven. My brain is very interest driven, but it's about finding a balance in those things, because there are still some things that you just have to do in order for you to continue to move forward and make progress. And sometimes my reason for not liking to do it is that I don't know enough about it. And so it goes back to the perfectionism. If I don't feel like I'm doing it right or perfect, then I don't like it, because I just don't like that feeling of not knowing. And I've also found that as I learn and actually practice and just do things, and I'm not afraid to show up imperfectly or afraid to show up and learn from a mistake or just put stuff out there, then I learn faster. You learn faster from failing anyway. So we might as well do it. I think the number one thing that resonated with me, though, is that you started to do things that felt like they were in alignment with you and in alignment with your core values. I want to talk more about that, because when I went through the core values exercise for myself, I had worked on a couple brands who did rebrands, and we went through this exercise as a brand for a large company. But me just even going through that for my personal self was probably one of the single most impactful things I've done for myself in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
because it completely switched something in my brain. So I'm curious to hear how that exercise worked for you.
Yeah, so my web designer was the one that really took me through all of that and pushed me into everything that you're talking about, working with other people and outsourcing, because he was young and we had met in a spiritual community and I had done some spiritual work before I was charging for any of it. So I'm a web designer, I'm just going to design you a website and that's how I'm going to pay you back. And so started really getting the rundown on branding, and what he does, everything is about your brand. You can't build a business without your brand. And he was so big on that. And I remember feeling so frustrated by that. It's just, this is what I do and I just need a logo and it's fine. No, we're going to hone in. And then starting to work with Kula more was building off of what I was already doing in my personal life, which was all of the conversations about authenticity and core values and getting into showing up imperfect and just having compassion. So it all built for me. The first thing was just the brand exploration. It really forced me to get out there and do a lot of research and look at what other people were doing and why they were doing it. And once I started getting into the whys, that's where I started really seeing what aligned with me and what didn't. Oh man, I love what this company's doing. And my designer asked, why do you love? He asked me why so many freaking times. And it was wonderful. But I was like, why do you always ask me why? Because at the time I was going through a lot in my personal life. So I was just
it just does isn't a good enough answer. It just does, okay?
No, it does, okay. Teenage version of me. But as we really got into that, all jokes aside, it was a lot of, I like beyond the color scheme, this is what this symbolizes for me. I like the darkness in this, or I like the earthiness of this because of my connection to the earth and my personal beliefs and my spiritual beliefs and how everything is connected with the darkness and the light and above and below, and how we have to be grounded, but we also need to be in touch with our spiritual self. And when I really started getting into it, I realized, oh, this means a whole lot more to me than I realized. So really having that brand align with, you are the business, you are the product, the service, everything, because it flows through you, made that connection. And he even said to me before I really connected it up here, you are the business. We're really marketing you. Yes, you have teas, but you're everything here that needs to be marketed. And I was so uncomfortable with that. So uncomfortable. So I just focused on, what do I want? Why do I want it? What am I doing in my business that aligns with that? Because then when I would hit obstacles or things I didn't want to do or didn't like, because it all lines up with my values and my personal purpose and path in life, I'll push through it much more willingly. I might whine about it a little bit or procrastinate. I want to do this. Okay, let's go. All right, put on your adult pants. Here we go.
Yeah.
But it made a huge difference in everything that I was doing. So now my whole life is in alignment and it feels peaceful and fulfilling.
Right. I feel the exact same way. And again, I first did that exercise for myself, my personal values. But then as I was building my business, I was, it's just the same. The words are the same, but maybe the way that I define them is a little bit different when I'm just thinking about what it means to me personally versus how people can expect an interaction with me or my brand to feel, whether they're looking at something on social media or on a website or whatever. Those values, I want it to invoke an emotion. And I think that's the power of when you connect with someone's values. I think that's the way that I felt in the coaching school, right? Because I knew that there were all these people in one place who were like-minded individuals, who were just genuine, good spirits, who really wanted to help people, to serve people. And when you have people that are in a room, and not even in a room, it was a virtual room, in a call like that, there's ease that happens because you know that the most important things are already in alignment. And so that's how I feel when you figure out your core values and you publish them somewhere on your social media, on your website, whatever, people who find you and read that are going to know right away it's a yes or it's a no. And either way, that's good. You don't want people who aren't aligned with your values. and you do want people who are aligned with your values. It's going to make your work so much more fulfilling, and it's going to make those relationships so much more rich because there's this little piece that you share in common. And also, people, especially neurodivergent people, just love to know what to expect. And your values articulate what they can expect from you.
Yeah, for sure.
In your services. So it's such a valuable exercise to go through. It's the first thing that I do with all of my business coaching clients. Even before thinking about the vision or the mission of your business, is no, actually, what's just important to you as a person? Why are you even doing this? And what guides you day to day, just in your life? I love that you said, when I can look at this and know that I can weather something challenging as long as I know that the direction I'm moving is still in alignment. And that's it. It grounds you in those difficult moments when you're like, you remember why you're doing it or why you want to help or what you're trying to build intentionally for your life. And it's really, it's like this invisible safety net for you to help weather or navigate some of these storms. And so it was such a powerful exercise for me. I created a guide for it that we can share at the end of this call, but that was the one thing. And almost every time without fail, when I take a client through this, it's funny in the beginning because people don't really see the purpose behind it. And sometimes there have even been situations where I'm like, okay, we can sidestep this for a minute. And then 2 sessions later, 3 sessions later, they're like, so I was thinking about my values again. I'm like, and we're back. And it clicks why that level of clarity is so important, because when you can actually just see yourself reflected on paper or on a screen in these words and in these feelings, and you can invoke an emotion for yourself that really just embodies who you are and what you want to do, it's so powerful. It gives you so much confidence and just makes you feel so empowered to actually move forward. But the other thing then that's challenging for business owners is how do I do it all? Because there's this old narrative that I think is starting to fade into the background. I adamantly unsubscribe to this narrative, but I think it's starting to fade and things are starting to shift where if you want to build a business, you just have to get quiet. Don't tell anyone what you're doing. Put your nose down, hustle and grind, work for 6 months or 12 months or 18 months until you build the thing. And I'm just like, no, thanks. That sounds terrible. Like, so I think that a lot of people fall victim to that though. And then when you isolate, that hard stuff is 10 times harder. But also, you don't necessarily even have a compass to get you out of the woods when you get lost, because inevitably in that time, things are going to pop up in front of you that look shiny and pretty, but aren't what you should be pursuing.
Yeah.
And your core values just really give you the compass to say, these are the things that are most important. Those other things might come into play later, but not now. Keep moving in this direction.
Exactly. I wanted to reflect on a few things that you shared, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because the community aspect and the sharing was a big one for me, because when I realized, as I was working with web designer and he was bringing in some of his team members and I was watching what other business owners were doing and transitioning in my life, I realized that even though I did have some supports and people that I reached out to every now and again, was not utilizing community and leaning on people or even comfortable asking for help. And it's really created a big change to even have that mindset of co-creation and collaboration. I even said to somebody last night, it's another friend I met in the same spiritual group, actually, who is working on an old side hustle that he's coming back to because it's something that he's passionate about. And we've connected over that. And I remember him talking about, I just need to do this and I need to do this and then I'll be ready. Co-creation can be far more powerful than trying to do it yourself and then trying to present something that's perfect. Focus your energy on what is fully aligned with your goals. The coach in me came out 100%. If it's aligned with what you want to do and your purpose, that's where you need to put your energy. Yeah. And it was a cool moment to reflect that to someone and not only mean it, because I always mean it when I say things to people, but also have lived it and been living it to the extent that I really felt it in my body.
Yeah.
And I said it. And I also don't like that narrative. Just put your nose to the grindstone and just go, because yes, you're going to have to do work. Of course, you're going to have to do work for it. But if you're openly sharing what you're doing, number one, there's some accountability there, because
Yep.
especially
Which
as
we need.
yeah, if I said I'm going to do it and people know now, I better do it. And
Yep.
God, I better have a darn good reason to not do it. There's that shift that happens.
I think you're right, because there's a part of that we like don't talk about, and it's the type of support you get in community. I'm reading Dare to Lead right now, Brene Brown's book on leadership. The thing that is true, and I think this is the thing that I've really tried to intentionally cultivate since my divorce 4 years ago, more intentionally building a circle of people around me. The type of feedback that I want is clear and kind feedback. And she talks in the book about how everything clear is kind, everything unclear is unkind, or people just telling people what they want to hear is unkind. And so
I think that's disrespectful.
the part that we don't talk about is that I feel like in the past, a younger version of me would have shown my work to someone who I knew was going to just say only positive things. And the most powerful part of collaboration and co-creation that I've learned in the last 5 to 7 years is that even though it's a little bit vulnerable to put your stuff out on the table and basically say, tell me what you really think, or here's what I've got. Yeah. Let's make this better together.
Yeah.
It changes the game, because
yep.
I definitely reach stuck points, or I get my vision in my head and I can see the end. But when I show it to someone else, they're like, where are we going? What are we doing here? Okay, this isn't clear yet. It's clear in my head, but it's not clear for everybody else. So let's figure out how we can make it more clear, or we can polish this up. And even though that triggers crap out of my rejection sensitivity, it's actually what's most necessary.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
It's where the growth happens. And ironically, I did a workshop on perfectionism inside the Kula community. Awesome. And one of the members of our community was saying perfectionism is boring, and perfectionism actually robs you of an opportunity to learn something. If everything you ever put out is perfect and there's no opportunity for evolution or growth after you put it out, then you don't learn anything. And I was like, all right, you want to teach this workshop? Like,
and you just became a co-host. Congratulations.
Exactly. I was like, wow, that is such a profound thought, but it's so true. And curiosity is one of my core values, because I love learning. And then I was like, oof, for a long time, I wore that label of perfectionism with pride. I'm a perfectionist. And now I'm like, ew, I don't want to be a perfectionist anymore. It's a lot to unlearn. And there's always going to be little elements of it that creep up, but I'm trying really hard to lean more into that. Let's make this better together, the collaboration and the co-creation, to the point where when I just rewrote my own core values a couple months ago, I added collaboration because I was like,
that's awesome.
Not only because it's something that I've come to value so much in the context of community, but because I also want to hold myself accountable to continuing to lean into that little bit of discomfort, because it can still be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So the other part of core values I talk about when I talk to clients, especially about what it looks like to build a sustainable life. And I do work with neurodivergent clients and or people often. And I think it's hard because our rejection sensitivity tends to make us people pleasers, which means we don't like to say no to things. We don't like to say no to opportunities. We tend to have soft or porous boundaries around a lot of things. And when we don't say no, that's when the overwhelm comes in or the burnout comes in. And we need to be so leery of burnout, because neurodivergent brains tend to burn out faster and more frequently than neurotypical brains. And so we need to just be so discerning with what gets our energy and so protective of our energy. So one of the things I've been walking the community through over the last couple of weeks is, what does sustainability actually look like? Because that whole hustle and grind narrative, that's not sustainable. You might be able to sustain that for a couple of months, but you're going to burn out pretty quickly. That's how we get the project graveyard of hobbies that we start and then hyper fixate on, and then they sit in a closet forever, or the folders upon folders of half-baked Google Docs, all the ideas that I've had.
Yep.
That kind of stuff happens when we don't really have our priorities in order. There's been a work-life balance, and then people started flipping it to life-work balance because work should fit into your life and not the other way around. And I believe that. But I don't love the word balance. Just me personally, this is a personal opinion. I don't love the word balance because in my brain, which can sometimes be literal, I'm literally thinking about scales and everything being equal, right? That's also not sustainable. So if we think about all these aspects of our life, like your family and your friends and your partnerships or romantic relationships, your time for play or creativity or fun, your financial well-being, physical health, your mental well-being, your spiritual well-being. We have all these assets that are important in us being like a whole human being. And they can't all be equal. So a year ago, when we went through the Wheel of Life exercise as part of the coaching school, I was like, oh, this makes it make sense for me, because I feel like one thing social media did, and again, I think we're shifting away from this, which is amazing because it's unrealistic, but social media is everyone's highlight reel, right? So you look at someone's social media feed and you're like, they have it all and they have it all figured out and they can balance it all and juggle it all and it's all perfect. And it's not ever. It's never that way. But I think if we think about the Wheel of Life, the one thing that it said was not everything is a 10 for you. Some things just are more important to you than others, and that's okay. We all have different needs and desires and different things that are more or less important to us because of our lived experiences or our values or all of these different things. And you can create harmony according to what's most important, doing more of what's most important and less of what's not important, right? That's where the harmony and fulfillment comes from. But you have to actually be so thoughtful and intentional. Just the visual of writing it down and seeing it on paper was what made it click for me. So I had already done the core values exercise, and now I'm doing the Wheel of Life. And I'm like, okay, so these are the things that are most important, the things that need the most time and energy from me. Now I can figure out how to structure my days or how to plan my weeks. And I can create all these little systems and tools for myself that hold me accountable to staying in alignment with those two things, my values and the things on my Wheel of Life that I've decided are most important, right? So those are like your guardrails, but they're guardrails on the 5-lane highway. It doesn't block you in like this. You still have so much freedom to choose, and move and adapt, but it gives you guardrails that keep you on your path when you have the clarity. But so many people, you could pose the question. Just let's say that's your intro at your next cocktail party. You're standing in a crowd. So what are your core values, or what's most important to you? People are just going to start saying words.
Yeah.
And they're just going to be words because they haven't really thought about it or defined it or even come up with the words to articulate why those things are most important.
Yeah, that part.
Right? It's going through that exercise that gives you the clarity to put these guardrails up that help keep you on track. But it also tells you how to protect your energy. I started making lists because I love a good list. I like to write things down on lists. I like to have lists readily available. I like to check things off lists, all of the lists. But I actually find it so helpful, especially in moments when I'm on the verge of being just tapped out energetically. When you're in that mode, when you're running on fumes, it's like when your Apple Watch is, let's go into low power mode, and it shuts off half of the features because it doesn't want to drain the battery completely to empty. It's trying to preserve energy. So when I'm in low power mode, I've never thought of it that way until literally right now, but I like this analogy. So when I'm in low power mode, it shuts off the part of my brain that remembers the insane amount of knowledge and resources and tools and skills I've collected over the years. And it's like none of it exists. I cannot access it. So I can't remember how to bring myself back.
Mm.
And so that's been the powerful thing for me about having it written down on a list. If I know where to find that list, then I can remember what tools I
Yeah,
have in my toolbox that can bring me back.
for sure. And I need to go through and do my Wheel of Life exercise again. It's been a while. I've rewritten the values quite a few times, but as you're talking about, you know what? I would be curious what it looks written down. 'Cause for me, it's somewhere in between an art gallery and a movie theater in my head, and there's lots of cartoon reels that play, and there's always a radio on up there. So
Yeah.
as people are talking, I'm picturing stuff nonstop, and there's often some cartoon version of it happening on the side. So if I laugh at inappropriate times, please don't be offended. It's because there's a cartoon in my head, and it
No,
may or
I
may
got
not
it.
have a feature in it that doesn't make sense in that moment. But I was picturing the Wheel of Life more like two things. One, it came up as a multi-scale instead of being two sides. It was scales that were crisscrossed multiple ways.
Ooh.
And you have different weights going in different areas because if you're, say, a baker, you're changing the scale to match what you want that to weigh in at. So you're going to add more weight on this side, and then you're going to add more weight on the other side so it balances because you're saying, actually, I don't like where this is sitting, so I'm going to change it, which was interesting to have that happen. And the other one is
That's a very interesting visual.
it's what my brain does, guys. It's wild. It's wild up here. The other one was the kinetic energy pendulums where you have all the balls in the center and you have the ones that hit and the kinetic energy goes through and pops the other one up. That was more of my ender point in it, is my thought of the core values running through all of those balancing points, whatever balance looks like for you and your focus is. Ultimately, that energy is going to run through everything that you're doing, and you're going to swing something this way because I'm really focused on business and family right now. So business is over here and it comes back through and it smashes into the other things that are also a part of it, your physical wellness and your spiritual wellness and relationships and everything else. And then it swings the other way for your primary focus, which may be, family or personal goals, whatever that is.
Right.
It was an interesting visual to have because I recognize how that's been the shift for me of, okay, family and fitness is a big thing for me right now, but also business. So the scales were going different ways, but as long as I was spending quality time with my daughter and my close family that's near me and taking care of my body, all the business stuff was easy because that energy was flowing through it all.
And that's exactly okay. So you've hit on two really key things. Is that, again, we can have it all, but not necessarily at exactly the same time. We just need to be really mindful and discerning about when. And so for me, again, because I'm a super visual person, I live and die by my Google Calendar, but every category on my Wheel of Life has a different color on my calendar. So me time or things that are just for me, even my nail appointment or my hair appointment or when I go to therapy, those things are peach color because that's for me.
Yeah.
And then if I have coaching clients, that's a green color. And I like those to stand out because I want to make sure that I have a buffer on either side of those clients so that I can recharge and then also recalibrate afterwards so that in that context of an hour, they've got my full energy and attention, but it stands out against all the other colors on my calendar so that I can make sure that I always have that energy and attention to give. And so the things that, even if it's a fulfilling endeavor or a worthwhile endeavor, it's still going to deplete your energy a little bit. So I make those things stand out on my calendar so that I can rebalance on both sides, like recalibrate on both sides. And then stuff that I have to do with the kids or with family is a different color. Everything's a different color. So at the beginning of the week or at the end of the week, I can look at my calendar and I can say, oh, way too much blue going on here. That's too much work and not enough play. So I got to move some things around and put some time in that's just for me. So the 4 lists that I put in this Building a Sustainable Life guide are things that drain my energy, things, here comes the real fun stuff. Things that give me a quick boost, things that completely recharge or replenish, or how I rest, how I actually recover from all the things that drain me. And my favorite list, the fourth and my favorite list, are the things that make me come alive. Not just recharge or rest, but the times when I feel most like myself. I've got hearts too, I think.
It came
So
out.
isn't that cute? So the things that make me feel most like myself, like when I can do a yoga class or even just do yoga in my house by myself,
For
or
sure.
I can go for a walk in nature with no headphones, no devices, just actually be fully present in nature. That makes me feel so alive. So when I look at those lists, that's how I can plan my day. I can look and I can say, okay, there's 2 things on my calendar today that are definitely going to drain my energy. So,
Mhm.
in between those 2 things, I got to have a quick boost. I got to have some kind of little dopamine hit that's going to bring me back and get me ready to go through the next thing. And then at the end of my day, I need some transition time. I need time to rest so that I can transition away from work and into family.
Yep.
And so I pull something off of that rest and recharge list. And then maybe in the evenings or my weekends, those are the times where I make sure that I've got at least one of those things that makes me come alive. So it's being able to, again, it's not balance for me. It's just harmony. It's the
Yeah.
things in the right proportions. You use the cooking analogy with weights, it's like a recipe. It's balancing your ingredients so that you get the dish that tastes good at the end.
Yep.
I feel like that is still a constant work in progress because it's a constant juggling act, but
For
just
sure.
having the tools to be able to refer back to and refresh on those things on a regular basis has completely changed the game in the way I show up in my work.
Absolutely. And something that I know you and I talk about a lot in the pool community, we talk about a lot too, is adjacent to what you're talking about with incorporating that playtime and that personal time and recognizing a need to adjust somewhere. Like I had a day where I just randomly decided at the end of my day, instead of doing the extra work I was supposed to do because I didn't have my daughter with me and wasn't really in a big social mood, I realized I haven't worked out all week and it's impacting my mood. So I'm on a whim going to go to a boxing class at my gym because I know there's one going on. And then my evening appointment got canceled. So then I went to Zumba outdoors at the Pops Amphitheater. And it was a whole day where I ended up making some new friends and meeting some new people and really just having a great time. And it was a reminder to me that not only do I need to listen to my body and what is my body telling me? Am I feeling just really low and drained? Am I feeling cranky and why? And I've now started to be able to tap into those body cues of what's happening in my body. Am I overstimulated right now? Do I need to eat? Did I get enough sleep last night? Am I thirsty? Like
Am
the
I hungry? Am I tired? Am I thirsty? Am
yeah, let's go through the
I...
basics. Okay, those are set. I fed myself. I watered myself. Right.
right.
I slept. I put myself
That
to bed.
struggle is so real though. Oh,
Right.
how
You
easy is it
know,
to just like disregard your basic needs?
I have a neurodivergent friend that said he literally will schedule in meals because the way his brain works, this is common for a lot of us, we don't incorporate those basic things that most people are like, no, it is lunch break right now because if we're in flow, we're in flow. And then suddenly, oh, it's way past lunchtime, but I have these other things on the schedule and I got to do this. And whoa, hold on, back up. And then there's the sensory aspect for me. Like I had somebody tell me this week, multiple people, I don't know how you get anything done at the gyms. My daughter was at camp, so spending 20 minutes driving, I'm just going to sit up there and work. Because I'm neurodivergent, I'm gonna get distracted by something anyways. Sometimes I have to have music playing or I need to have something that I can tap and click.
Mm-hmm.
So that way I can keep my brain here. You got something beside you, don't you?
I do. I have this on my desk, and half
I
the time
saw you playing with that on Monday.
this comes out in so many calls because if my hands are busy, I can be focused.
Yep. I
Yep.
hear I hear that. That's why I was showing you these things earlier. That's why I got my little
Yep.
little bald head is great to rub too.
Yep.
My stones around. I have a heart that my sister-in-law gave me that's a rubbing stone. It's fat.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those things are just game changers for a neurodivergent individual because as entrepreneurs and leaders, we are the most brilliant, innovative leaders and creators in the world. If you look at, I'm going to share this when I share this post as well, but I have an exploring neurodiversity blog that has a short list of the neurodivergent people from our history. And we're talking about Michelangelo, Einstein. We're talking about some big players.
Yep.
And if you look at the things that they've done, it's sometimes as neurodivergents, we can look at it as, oh, I have these obstacles. I can't do this. I can't do that. What can you do? Because we're able to accomplish so much more than a neurotypical on a standard day because our brains do work in the most wacky way because it goes 1,000 miles a minute. It's just the organization structure, which is where sometimes a neurotypical, how do you organize yourself? Because I'm having trouble with this part and I need to pull from what you do and figure out what works for me. And find a challenge point. And that's even where I like getting criticism, something that doesn't feel in resonance. I'll take it with a grain of salt. But sometimes I really like that questioning because it'll give me areas that I can fine tune that I may not have thought about with somebody else. None of this applies to me, but here's what I need. And I'm going to take that.
I love that. And here's the thing. I think what's so interesting in so many of my conversations with neurodivergent entrepreneurs, I worked in offices and for companies for years. And then I went remote and I was still working for a company, but I was working in my home. There's the balloon.
They're a little late. Welcome.
When I don't want them, but
it's celebrating.
What I didn't even realize until I started working from home. And there's some people who don't like working from home because I don't feel like I get anything done or there's too many distractions. For me, and I didn't have the language for this until the last year or so when I've been uncovering my own neurodivergence and what that actually means. The sensory stimulation or the sensory overload that I felt in an office.
Yes.
I wasn't even fully aware of how much it impacted my ability to actually get things done. Right? Like, I remember there was one building that I worked in that had most of the offices, except the 2 offices in the very front of the building, had no windows. And it was fine. It's LED lights. It's bright lights overhead. And I'm sharing an office with another person and we're both on the phone all the time. And so that was super hard. And then I switched teams and got moved to the office in the front that had windows. And I was like, yes, windows, like natural light, not just glaring LED lights. Well, guess what the front windows did? It made the office like a greenhouse. And so now I'm hot all the time. And now I can't do anything because I'm hot and I'm uncomfortable. I can't win. I can't win. When I have complete control over my environment, my creativity and my productivity skyrocket.
I hear that. Yeah.
And so here's the thing. When you're forced to be in that environment every single day, it is so draining. At the end of the day, coming home from working in an office, between my commute, sitting in traffic, and having to interact with so many people, people being on the phone, and the noises and the smells and the lights and all the things, no wonder I would come home at night and just absolutely crash. My body was so overwhelmed and so overstimulated because all day long it was just processing. And I wasn't even aware of the why. I thought maybe I just didn't love my job enough or I'm an introvert, blah, blah, blah. But it turns out that I can get so much more done in less time when I'm in control of my environment. And that also means being able to choose, right? Some days I can actually sit in this office, which I chose the colors, I chose the curtains, I choose the smells, I've got incense and I've got all my things in here. This is a comfortable space. But some days I sit down at my desk and I'm like, yep, no work is happening here today. I got to go somewhere else. I just need a change of scenery. And so that's when I can go to the library. I'm going to go sit at a coffee shop for a few hours. And just that change of scenery is enough to switch something in my brain to where I can be creative again. But I'm in control of that. Yeah. So the thing that was so hard about being in an office environment was I had no control over my sensory diet. It just was stuff that I had to continually process. And even now,
I've shoving McDonald's down your throat every day.
Exactly. Ooh, blah.
I know, right?
Even now, I think there's so many things like the putty or the fidgets or things that I can do that stimulate my brain in a positive way. Or I have loop earplugs or the flare that filter noise and take some of the harshness out of noise. Or I have rose-colored glasses that take the glares off lights. And so when my body has to process less sensory information, that leaves more room energetically in my brain and my body for me to reallocate towards, I have to do some creative writing today. So I really need to dive in and get into this flow state. I've got to shut off all these other inputs.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last part of the energy management stuff that I've talked about with the community is managing your sensory diet. And there's so many things that I'm sure I'm still not even aware of, but I've compiled some more lists because I love a good list of some of the things that have helped me. And in retrospect, so many things make sense, right? Like the reason that I gravitated towards the fitness industry was because it's movement and stimulation and activity, and also the comfiest clothes, right? I worked in fitness for 10 years in like fitness industries, and I'm wearing stretchy pants all the time. You asked me to put on a pair of jeans. I'm like, no, thanks, hard pants. I hate this. As soon as I walk back in the door, I'm like,
oh, focus on anything but these terrible pants.
Yeah. How do people live like this? I don't know. All my pants are stretchy now. I won't even.
Jeans. That's where it's at. Maternity jeans because they stretch. I got rid of all my old ones after that. Never again.
And I also got rid of every single pair of heels or uncomfortable shoes I have. It is only comfy shoes from here on out. I just can't, now that I know what I know and I understand how much having to process sensory information of even just being a little bit uncomfortable in an uncomfortable pair of shoes, how it detracted from my experience, I can't go back. Mm-hmm. And so the biggest benefit of being a neurodivergent entrepreneur is that you get to make all of your own accommodations, whatever it is you need.
No approval needed.
Exactly. Let me ask my boss, can I put earplugs in today? Yep. Can I turn the lights off? Yep. Can I burn some incense? Yep. I can do whatever I want. Yeah. Can I bring my dog to work? Sure. You can do whatever you want and make your own accommodations. And when you have the ability to make your own accommodations, that is when all of our unique wiring and our unique strengths start to feel like superpowers, right? But only in that kind of environment, because when you're being forced into these other boxes or forced to process all of this additional information, your superpowers don't have an opportunity to come out. Like your biggest strengths get squashed because you're expending so much energy masking or processing sensory information. And that's been the biggest thing for me, but we still just need to be so mindful of what gets our energy, including the things in our sensory environment.
Sorry, I'm getting fidgety. I had my feet underneath me and the pillow button popped off, was poking me in the ankle. Speaking of sensory interruptions there, I was like, oh, God.
Yep. Tiniest bit of discomfort. Totally get it.
You're absolutely right. I was, as you were talking, I was thinking of 3 different environments where it's similar. One of them is a social environment where I've joined the church choir. I'm not a religious person, but I enjoy spirituality and I live in the Bible Belt. So I study Christianity and have my whole life, and I love singing. And so I'm in the choir now, and they're a little bit more formal. It's a Methodist church. And I almost always sit with my legs underneath me because I have an old ankle injury. And if I sit normal, whatever that is, it hurts my back and my neck really bad. So I'm fidgeting a lot. And I got a comment about that last week. Yeah, I'm going to need you to sit proper while you're up here.
No, my chair is this wide. I have a meditation chair so that I can sit with my legs crossed.
Yeah.
I've got like the crisscross applesauce chair. Yep.
That's
because I'm constantly moving back and forth, sitting with my legs crossed.
And the cool thing now that I've gotten more comfortable with, I am neurodivergent, and there are certain things that I need, and even not being neurodivergent, there's just certain times where sometimes we got to compromise and figure out what works for both of us. And it was so cool for myself to very quickly just advocate. And I've been my own boss for so long that I'm getting much more comfortable just saying, this is what I do and this is why I do it. And see what they say. Don't say I'm going to or not going to, just this is what I'm doing, this is why. Wait for a response. So I just said, oh, I have an old ankle injury where I tore every single ligament in my ankle and it caused some pretty serious damage in my legs. It's actually very uncomfortable for me to sit normal. So that's why I sit crisscross like this. But I can try. I'm going to be real fidgety. If not, he's, oh, I'm sorry. And also I'm right behind the pastor's chair, so you can't see me. So bonus there, I'm just going to move over to that seat.
So who cares?
Yeah. Then the other one was back when I was in a workplace, and it was a mental health facility. So they were a little bit more accommodating, because you're talking about cooking meals for anywhere from 40 to 100 people, sometimes by yourself, sometimes with a team, sometimes with residents that are coming in for life skills and learning how to bypass whatever their mental health obstacles are and be in a working environment. So now you have people that that need extra care, sometimes with support for them, sometimes without, and always on a skeleton crew. We never had enough staff. So it was nonstop there. And somebody told me, you can't wear earbuds in this kitchen. And I think I laughed at them when they said that. And I said, then we're going to need some music in here, because another kitchen worker was not about the music. That if you want me to do all of these things, I understand if you feel like it's a hazard, I can take one out. That's absolutely fine. And it's never so loud I can't hear people. But if you want me to do all of these things at once, this is my grounder. Yep. This will keep me in a good headspace. I will be able to handle anything that comes my way. If not, I'm going to bounce into this and be good. And I still use that tool. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, a little bit of green tea, a little bit of music, and I'm good. I'll be sitting there singing while I'm typing stuff, and people looking at me all crazy if I'm at the gym or a coffee shop, because I don't care. Just this is where I'm at.
Let your freak flag fly. Ooh, that's
some of it, not all of it.
Tongue twister.
LFF.
So much of that stuff, though, because I wasn't even fully aware of my own neurodivergence until, again, a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
Surrounding myself with community as I'm going through this journey of discovery has made me aware of so many of these things, and then helped me find what are the accommodations, or how do I manage this sensory input. That's another piece of it that has been so powerful, is finding the community to walk through it with you, who can share what they've learned, and vice versa. We need each other. We just need each other. And for me, both the entrepreneur piece and the neurodivergent piece, and then the nice little cocktail of doing both of those things at once, community has been critical. Yeah. It's everything. It's everything.
And I know that we set this up in case we had folks come join us on a beautiful Friday evening, so I get it. But when we don't have folks join, what I have been doing is taking whatever resources that we have available, and when I post this, it will either be in the comments, or you're going to have a link to a document that has a snapshot of all of the resources in it. One of the things that's on there that I'm going to include this time, I normally say you have to show up to do the quizzes and polls, but I do want to include the quizzes and polls this time. And I'm going to create a submission form for this, because it asks some important questions that we covered here that I think are going to be really valuable. And that's one is, what is your biggest challenge? Whether you're neurodivergent or not, what is your biggest challenge? And the second one is going to be a neurodivergence assessment. So that way you can go through just some simple questions to look at what your area is. And keep in mind, neurodivergence has a very broad spectrum of diagnoses, or not even diagnoses connected, just our brains working a little bit differently. So I think that it's very useful to have these tools for your self-assessment. And also Erica has quite a few tools for you to take what you learn from your polls and assessments and start creating immediate action steps to start helping yourself become more sustainable, or being able to really see clearly what the picture is that you need to move forward in your personal journey. And then, of course, we're going to have our contact information. Eric and I both have different specialties in coaching, but we both work really well with neurodivergence in our own journey and in theirs, also neurotypicals. But we're going to include our contact information as well, so that you can get in touch with either one of us. I do empowerment coaching. I work with mind, body, and spirit. I use something similar to the Wheel of Life, but I have a more narrow spectrum that I look at, and then we incorporate bits and pieces into it. And then I know Erica focuses a lot on business, but you do other things as well on top of that.
I don't really separate business and life. Every business owner that I work with, we talk about life just as much as we talk about business. Yeah, because the lines are a bit blurred. And especially if we're concocting this recipe and trying to pull bits and pieces, finding ways to prioritize or optimize your time in your business so that you can make room for those things that make you feel most like yourself, or that help you feel in harmony and fulfillment. That's really what I focus on with a lot of the business owners that I work with. I've worked with moms who are trying to juggle kids and sports practices, and then also trying to pursue relationships after being out of the scene for a while, but also not let things fall by the wayside in your business. How do we find a way to pull it all together in a way that makes sense and feels good?
Harmony.
So we talk about everything because I just found that was true even when I was a business coach under other companies.
Mhm.
I would show up to a call thinking that we were going to talk about the marketing strategy or the marketing execution that we talked about last week. And they would just be like, this thing happened and I can't focus today or I can't do anything. And I feel like one of the biggest tools for entrepreneurs to be successful is learning how to navigate and manage stressful situations. But you also have to have an outlet for it. So having someone to talk to and talk through those things is what removes the block that gets you back to doing the other things that are also equally important to you. I don't really shy away from any conversation because I'm more interested in helping a whole person build a livelihood that supports the life they want to live.
Absolutely. Yeah, that reminds me of another coach that I did a podcast with last year who was marketed as a business coach, but once I spoke with him, he said, actually, I'm a coach for the business owners of the business because without them being in a good place, the business is completely irrelevant.
It's also, I think, like initially I set out thinking that I was just going to be a business coach. I can't ignore all this other stuff because if I continue to tell people to just push it aside, then I'm buying into that narrative of hustle and grind. And then you look back a year down the road and most of your life is in ruins, but your business is successful. Who cares? That's not going to be fulfilling.
Exactly.
You have to bring those other things along with you. And that might mean in the beginning that you are focusing a little more of your energy on your business, but you still make room for those other things that are important.
Your recipe is going to change as you go, right? So you got to change up the seasonings to go with.
Oh my gosh, it's every time I cook, I find a new recipe that I like to try and I cook it exactly the way it says the first time. And then the next 17 times I make it, it's 17 different versions. I riff. Yeah, you got to riff on it. You got to make it your own.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah. And in the notes, I also dropped findyourkula.com if you want to check out the community, and the core values guide and the sustainable life guide I mentioned are on my page on the Kula website, which is also going to be linked. So you'll find both of those free downloads on my page.
Excellent. So we'll include all of that. And still, if you're on this post and you found it either through Erica or through myself, please still drop comments and questions because we love engagement. That's why we're doing this. We want to hear what you think, what you feel, how this impacted you. What was your takeaway? What was your biggest takeaway from this that really resonated with you, or a light bulb moment that was an, oh, aha, hey, something just clicked for me? Please share those. We love to hear it. Neither one of us are going to try to push sales on you because you shared something. Unless you want us to, then of course we will sell you stuff. But
we are available.
Yeah, we are available if you go seeking. But what we really want is that connection to know what's touching you, so we know what we can share more of in the future that's going to be helpful. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Erica. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And I guess I'll be speaking to you in a few days again.
In a couple days. Yeah. And thank you so much for the invitation and the time and the space and the conversation. I loved this. This was amazing.
It's always a joy.
Yeah. Talk to you soon.
All right.